All right, you know what? Why don't we take a chance on something? I wrote a single sentence and I'm like, I think this is a topic. You ready? Joe Rogan changed my life. And it's embarrassing to say that I was ever a fan of the podcast.
So Joe Rogan saved your life.
Whoa. Changed.
See, yeah, that's what's that. So Joe Rogan saved your life,
Changed.
and then
Changed.
you want to call him daddy.
I don't want to. Yeah, I knew it was on some bullshit. As soon as that was saved word came out, you made it sound like I was a kitten in a box, and then so you found me at the bottom of a fucking dirt hill.
That's what you said.
So, anyways, like I was saying, Daddy Rogan.
Yes, daddy.
I think a lot of people right now have varying feelings about Joe Rogan. A lot of people hate him. A lot of people love him, depending on which aisle of the political spectrum you lie. My issue or my contention is not so much as the political stuff. I know a lot of people might not believe that. It's more so the actual essence of the podcast and how much that's drastically changed. I used to watch Joe when I was like 21, so that's a good 13, 14 years ago. It's important to give that context because at the time that I picked up on Joe Rogan, the internet was a completely different place. The idea of podcasts weren't a thing. People didn't even, they used to mock it. They used to think it was really fucking stupid. There was no money in it at the start of it. And it was also a time where there wasn't much information out there, or people didn't know how to access the information because the internet was so bare bones for quite some time. So when I first stumbled on it, like Joe Rogan experience looked so different at the time. It was like, so at first it started with him and Brian Redband on one camera. It was like a webcam. It was horrible quality.
Yeah, how's the quality? Sound, video wise? Does it sound all right? Can you see us all right?
And it was just them talking. There was all kinds of like overlays of shit moving. It was ghetto as fuck. I didn't watch that too much. But the next iteration was the split screen era. And the split screen era was when him, Brian Redband, oftentimes another comic, like 95% of his guests were comics or MMA fighters. Why? Because at the time, that's the only people that Joe really had access to much. Even though he'd done Fear Factor, he wasn't the kind of person he is today where he has access to billionaires and everything in between. So it's just him and these guys. And I would listen to all these conversations. And what was really entertaining for me is that in the sea of like commercial television, it was the first time that I was just seeing guys just talk about stuff and talk about it candidly. And it made me think of conversations I'd had with people at one point in my life, or conversations I wish I could have on a more regular basis. So for me, it was very insightful. And his approach to a lot of things was like an extreme level of curiosity mingled in with a healthy dose of skepticism. And that last part's really important. So when I'm listening to him talk about, there's one video I'll never forget. It's like Joe Rogan on relationships. And I think it was him talking to his good friend, Duncan Trussell. And here it is, just two guys who fucking love mushrooms, psychedelics, and talk about life.
No, this guy was awesome. And he was, one of the things he talked about is in some religious tradition, how they like hold the scriptures. A rabbi like had his students hold the scriptures over their heart. And, when they were memorizing them, and they would say, why do we do this? And he said, so that when your heart breaks, they'll fall in. And it's a beautiful idea, which is that heartbreak is actually your ego cracking. And the moment that cracks, you're in the experience of truth. And when you're in the experience of truth, that's when you can really become who you are. This is like something that I like that Ram Dass says, which is like, if you don't feel like meditating, don't meditate. Don't force it. Don't impose this on yourself. Keep doing the thing you're doing that's upsetting you so much. Have the balls to keep doing the fucking thing that you're doing. Keep doing it. Society is going to tell you, don't be like this. Stop being like this. You have to change. That's what your parents always say. The idea is like, no, sink into what you are right now. Just be that thing. God forgive me because I've quoted it way too many times, but it's better to be an honest street sweeper than a dishonest king. It's better to be a happy guy brushing fucking leaves up the street than it is to be some zillionaire who inside is dying or numb or miserable. Mostly numb. Numb's the word. Most people are just numb.
But as long as these people can quantify on paper, I still have a X $million home. My car still costs X thousand dollars. This suit is an X suit. I am still ahead. I am not going to abandon all these things.
As long as they don't see through the bullshit of the game they think they're winning.
They have to fall. Right. Yeah, it's almost like you have to fall to really. That's what you got to appreciate, those moments when it all falls apart on you, because that means you've got an opportunity to try it again. Are you close with your dad?
I had never met my dad. Single parent. You never met my dad. So thanks for bringing that up.
I don't know mine either. Mine's name is Joe Rogan.
Shit, he's out there someplace.
He's out there. The good thing is it made me realize that you can't count on people, but you can count on
trust
some people.
issues,
But
man.
I definitely had
That's trust
issues for a long
issues right
time.
there.
But become someone that people count on and count on people.
That's what you do.
I have a tight group of friends. Like me and my friends are very close.
I get it.
I would do anything for my friends, and family too.
See, I have there's a certain level of loyalty that I have because of that
Because of that, yeah. Well, you understand it. Whereas someone who grows up in a big household filled with people and the family was always there and everybody was there, you might take people for granted a little bit. My daughter, my youngest, we were playing the other day in the pool, and there was a point in time we were just laughing about something together, just laughing, and I'm looking at her face and she's laughing, and I felt like I was on drugs. I was like, the love that I have for these people is so intense. And it's also, I didn't get that when I was a kid. I didn't
know exactly what you're saying, man.
If Joe just did that kind of stuff the rest of his life, most people look at it as like, okay, it's two hippies just yapping away, and you would move on for your day. But it was really interesting stuff because for me, especially from the immigrant background that I came from, I never heard anybody in my whole life talk about introspection. I never heard anybody in my whole life talk about therapy. I never heard anybody in my whole life talk about being incredibly selfless in the way that you approach relationships. Like, these were all foreign concepts to me that were very much in line with, I think, a lot of the values that I wanted to embody, but I never saw in much of the media that I would watch. As a result, that podcast really opened my minds, and it taught me about a lot of things. And I credit Joe Rogan to some degree because after my father passed away when I was 21, psychedelics were probably one of the best things I had for me to help me through that, and it was very therapeutic for helping me to really analyze what I had going on inside me and help me heal from it. I had some crazy experience as a result that really helped me kind of move past that traumatic experience. And so I credit it. And it's also the thing that put me on stand-up. It's probably the thing that put me on Patrice O'Neal, Bill Burr, and a lot of these other people. And as a result, it kind of changed my trajectory in life from straying away from the military towards more artistic endeavors. And so I credit the podcast a lot of times. And I felt always very proud of that because of the fact that what it did for me was so huge. And I never take that away.
So have you ever done DMT?
Like, all of a sudden I'd be trying to prove that I'm not crazy when I knew I wasn't crazy.
Right.
Fast forward a couple of years later, there's a shift that happens, and now Joe's podcast is picking up traction. It's not what it is today at all, or even close, but it's definitely getting more popular. And at this point, he's moved to a studio. It looks like a bit more of a professional setup. Now he's inviting all kinds of people who are experts in sleep, which was huge for me because I have sleep apnea. And it's probably one of the biggest things that influenced me to actually get the machine so I could start sleeping again. Because I ended up learning like just how fucked up it is when you don't get good rest. He'd have people that were like neuroscientists, people that are reputable, some quack scientists as well. But Joe was really expanding, and it was really interesting for me because it was conversations I had never seen elsewhere, and I was really enjoying it. And again, a lot of you are like, oh, you never saw these conversations? This is 2013, 2014. There was no places that they're having these conversations. Unless it was some obscure TED Talk that you would never find. So yes, you have to give him some level of credit. He was one of the few, if only, people who were doing it and were relatively popular and consistent. And then he would even bring on political people. And Joe, as a self-proclaimed liberal, would have liberal people on, conservatives, and I enjoyed listening to the conservatives, oftentimes more than liberals because they were more entertaining, just being honest.
Look, here's the thing.
Fine. Listen,
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
But one thing I respected about Joe in that era is that even if he had a conservative on, he would push back. And he would push back on his ideals and be very vocal about it. And if you don't believe me, look at what happened when Candace Owens went on. She started yapping away about climate and stuff like that, and Joe didn't let her off the hook. And I don't think she's been back on since.
The climate is forever changing. Like that's the problem, is that people are making it seem like that's something weird.
No,
that's not
that's
unique.
not. You're misrepresenting the issue.
Look what happened when Steven Crowder came on and started talking about how weed is a devil and all this stuff, and Joe let him have it. It was one of their biggest, spats.
Traffic fatalities regarding marijuana have skyrocketed.
Google that, because that's nonsense. I think it was revealed in the WikiLeaks memos.
See, this is where I was saying
it was.
don't
Hold
care
on,
about
don't
this.
interrupt me, you fuck.
But at the same time, he would not shy away from disagreeing with liberals on things that were important. He had Jamie Kilstein. You know who that is?
No.
Short guy, white guy with glasses. He was part of like a lot of the Me Too stuff, and Joe let him have it. Joe unloaded on the dude.
You know that's worse than saying, wouldn't it be funny if someone just Yeah.
That's not worse.
It is worse. Murder's worse.
Murder's way worse than
Murder is worse than man.
I don't think we can have this conversation.
You're
man.
crazy. You would rather be murdered than
Probably top 3 biggest fights Joe's ever had on the podcast.
Really?
Yes. He was
pushing back on what?
A lot of the Me Too stuff at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. If I remember, Jamie Kilsey was like a hyper feminist type comedian.
Gotcha. Where is he now?
So funny enough, he's changed his tune. But that's a tape for a different day. Remember that guy who does Adam Hates Everything or something like that?
Yes.
He brought that dude, and he was letting him have it too.
So you think that males should be able to compete in the women's division of weightlifting?
No, I don't necessarily.
But they can if they transition.
Well, first of all,
So you would see that Joe would have people from all ends of the political spectrum, but he was always not
back.
shy about pushing back. And that's something that I truly appreciate.
That's the first assessment.
Yes. I think I tuned out of the podcast actually before COVID, like 2018, 2019. I started tuning out a little bit, and that's more so when the IDW phase started, which if you don't know what the IDW is, it's called the intellectual dark web, okay? Super nerdy. I thought it was one of the gayest titles I'd ever seen. It essentially is Comic-Con for niggas with doctorates. You got a degree, you a big fucking nerd, social reject, come join us. It was like that.
Gotcha.
So you had like Jordan Peterson, Sam Harris, I think Ben Shapiro maybe, Joe Rogan, a couple other people. Some of them have already left, but it was a really cringe movement, in my opinion. But I saw Joe, all of a sudden, a lot of reoccurring guests would start appearing, and a lot of them all leaned to the right. That was like, it was a reoccurring theme, and a lot of them were grifters. You know, like Dave Rubin, he's not allowed on the podcast anymore. He go big, and Joe's talking shit about him. But you would see these people that would start coming on.
What year was that?
It's got by 2018, 2019. My timeline, I'm going roughly. But I think when I really saw Joe, you know, I could not watch episodes anymore, was definitely after the pandemic. And to be fair, I understand why. You know, legacy media definitely did Joe dirty with how they covered him with COVID.
Yeah, a drug that has been shown to stop viral replication in vitro. You know that, right? Why would they lie and say that's horse dewormer? I can afford people medicine, motherfucker. This is ridiculous. It's just a lie.
I don't think anyone is thick.
But don't you think
they definitely did him super dirty? But I think that also partially broke his brain. Because after that, he was never the same. And then podcasts, like every time, it would always just be some spiel about conservative stuff. And there would be zero pushback. Jamie would correct him sometimes. He'd be like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. You just move on. But I'm like, bro, you were just spreading lies for a good, like, 2-3 minutes. You get fact check and there's no introspection, all this stuff that you'd always encourage. Like, you are not looking at your biases. Because in an odd way, Joe's the reason why part of the reasons why I became such an introspective person. But I feel like he's lost a lot of those qualities now that he's in this phase of his life for the last 4 or 5 years. That's what it feels like when I watch the pod now.
I can't understand why. And anyways, keep on going.
No, I've been talking for a long time. So
the dates corroborate. And then COVID happened and they really exaggerated everything. They basically lied. So he was doing for all this time this work where he was trying to do like the just thing, where you're supposed to see both sides of the spectrum and you're supposed to see like the two sides of the coin and stuff like that. But I've seen this happen a couple of times now where people from your camp ostracize you so bad because you disagree on one little thing. Like, you're not able to even be like, you said it yourself, he's the guy that was, you know, introspective. He was doing introspective and he was asking questions. And let me just question myself, because I'm not sure that we're necessarily, and it's good to ask the questions if we're going the right, like, to see if we're going in the right direction. And he was a liberal. But those same liberal from his camp was like, nah, bro, they did try to cancel him. So yeah, that is gonna affect someone. And I do believe that you're right when you say that something changed. And I understand why it changed. It was so bad at some point how they were trying to, like, even the media that had nothing to do, that were not even talking about him, we're talking about, yeah, he should be canceled. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna say something that is really weird. The way they treated Joe was like if it was the first Andrew Tate. They were saying that he was like his views, and he should not be platformed, and he should not platform. He should not platform these people, and he should not have. They were trying to dictate to him what he tried to do with his platform, just like.
Why were they trying to talk about his platform?
Because they were not agreeing. They were not agreeing with what he was saying, and they were saying that, oh well, no, that was before he switched. That was. Do you think it was right when he switched?
Yeah, it was when he was doing the ivermectin stuff. That's when everyone switched.
Yeah, but
before then they were not talking about.
But
it
was
that
he
much.
wrong?
Was he wrong about what he was saying?
Ivermectin?
Yeah, some of the stuff he was definitely wrong. Yeah. And that's when he brought up that expert, the most viewed podcast he had.
Oh, yeah,
and that
yeah, yeah.
podcast was a game changer because that expert was on point.
I remember what you're saying.
To be clear, just what they lied about, they were calling it horse dewormer.
Yes.
And it's not. It's not horse
It's not
dewormer.
exactly that.
It's not horse dewormer. It's not.
It's not
It's like saying an antibiotic is a horse dewormer if you use it at a certain dose. Sure, but the levels that humans use it for, it's not. So they were lying.
And because I feel like they were a bit on his case a bit before that when the Me Too stuff happened. That's where I feel like they started to be on his case a bit. It was not as bad because I was hearing some people. Oh yeah, I was hearing some people from the left talking about Joe Rogan being the devil and everything and stuff because he was like an enabler and he was like. That's what I heard personally from people in my sphere. Yeah, so I think they were starting to flip there. It was not as bad as the ivermectin stuff, but I digress. All that to say, I can understand why he's changed. I mean, everything you do something for so long, it's gonna change. Even if you look at this channel, it changed over time. We started this channel. We were not even in the room. We were in the living room. We're not even, and then the stance or the way that we're gonna attack certain subjects are gonna change, and your way of dealing with certain subjects as well is gonna change. It's bound to happen. I think.
Yeah, but we're not talking about change though. Like we changed. Did our core of what we do change? No. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's why I said I understand change. I don't even mind that he's more of a conservative today than he was before. Me, it's the lack of curiosity that I used to see and the level of pushback that I was used to that he no longer has.
No, I concur.
See, so that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the essence. Like original Joe Rogan fans, the people who were there for a long time, most of them are gone. It's a new crop of fans who have really popped up. And you can tell by the comment section, you can tell by the type of people that are engaged, you can tell by the response to a lot of things. It's a completely different atmosphere. And even by some of the guests that he brings on, you could really feel the change. What was my point at the beginning? Joe Rogan changed my life. And now I'm embarrassed to say I was ever a fan. That's all I'm getting at.
Was that last part?
And now I'm embarrassed to ever say that I was true.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because you have to understand, most people's perception of Joe is what he is today.
Yeah, but you fell in love with something that was back then. So I wouldn't feel ashamed of what it was because we're not talking about the same thing. When I understand that it changed and everything and stuff. It's like Kanye West.
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed to be like, I like Kanye West, the old Kanye West. When I'm saying that,
it's not like I'm ashamed, like, oh my God, I have to run. I'm just saying, like, it's just something I would never want to bring up. Whereas back in the past, I would have loved to bring that up. Oh, you know what? There's his podcast. I used to recommend his clips all the time. I used to recommend podcasts on sleep, on exercise, knees over toes guy. It was so good in terms of actual just knowledge in that regard. The fact that it is what it is today is not something I decry all the time. I'm not over here like, oh my God, Joe. It's like, I made dues with that 5-6 years ago. I accepted and I just stopped watching it for the most part. So I've already moved on. I also think that now we live in such a diverse political diverse podcast space that you have so many opportunities for you to go watch people and learn things and learn about sleep and stuff, that the void that Joe left has been filled by all different kinds of people. Also, one thing that definitely changed that I personally think is a big pet peeve of mine is Joe really felt like the everyday person. The way he talked about stuff, the way he advocated for things, and even the people he used to bring on. It definitely felt like that. And now it feels like the billionaires club. Like in the last 2 years, I think I've seen more billionaires on Joe's podcast than he ever had in the last 20 years before then. And it's just a weird feeling now where these people get to come on, okay, get to do their PR spin for whatever they're advocating, from Mark Zuckerberg to Elon to the other banker guy, lie about a lot of stuff, and Joe's never there to have Jamie fact check a lot of it. Joe's not there to like push back on it. He's just lapping it up. And I'm just saying, the guy that I used to listen before would have been highly skeptical of these kinds of people. But now it's just so bizarre seeing him buddy up with everyone who's like incredibly rich. Like, I used to hear Joe always complain about Mark Zuckerberg. I used to hear him roast him. And now he's sitting in front of the dude, and the dude's just lying about shit, and Joe's just like, oh, okay.
The thing is,
that's an odd thing to me.
Yeah, I understand the feeling when you say, like, oh, yeah, he felt like the everyday dude. But the reality is, he's not.
He was.
Present tense. He's not. He's not. He's not a regular dude.
Sure.
He don't hang out with regular dudes. So maybe that's what happened, or doing the UFC and being all maybe that's what it is. I'm not excusing him. I'm just saying, I'm trying to understand what happened and why it's like that. Maybe it's just the people that, you get to know them, you get to talk to them, and then eventually you're like, oh, these people are not that bad. And you get blinded by the lights, I guess.
Maybe that's what it is. I'm just saying, the guy who was skeptical of government every day, just seeing him lap up what a bunch of billionaires say is just bizarre to me. The whole point of legacy or independent media was to be a countercurrent to that voice. And it's like, okay. And now you're like yupping it up with guys who like own media companies and some of the biggest media companies.
What would you say to him?
What do you mean?
What would you say to Joe?
What would I say to him?
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, aside of thank you. I'd probably be thankful for what he did in the past for me. Because, at the end of the day, that doesn't erase the good. You can't erase the good, right?
That's
because
why you
I'm a
cannot
testament.
be ashamed of what he did in the past.
No, definitely still am. Because you're talking about an idealistic sense, but people's perception doesn't work that day. It's not because you explained it that people are understanding.
Yeah, I get you.
Like, I'm pretty sure the people who knew Hitler when he was a kid are probably like, oh, he was so cool. Shut your fucking mouth, right? And I'm not saying he's. I'm not saying he's that.
I didn't say shit.
But you get what I'm trying to say? It's like, yeah, I get what you're saying. In an idealistic world, people look at you, but you're still going to get that judgment regardless.
Sure.
Yeah.
You could have said Kanye.
Could have.
Same.
But I was just trying to illustrate the point. You got what I was trying to say. For all the political stuff, one of his biggest faults is the fucking, the Rogan sphere comedians. Like what Cat Williams said, Joe Rogan and 7 comedians that were never funny, right?
That would be like me being on Joe Rogan. Joe don't want me on there. I need to be on Shannon. Joe got 6 comedians that never been funny. He want to push out.
That's a fact. But he'd always promoted them. I understand they're his friends. But these hacks were always showing up and always being cringe and always being... And at some point, it's like, bro, how many times do I have to hear Brendan Schaub's got a fucking special? Dude's trash. Doing comedy for 3 months. Like, why y'all lying to us?
What do you have that replaces that?
I don't watch podcasts anymore.
Where do you get your inspiration? And what do you consume that entice you to grow?
I think everyday life is like much more impactful for me now. So when you're a young man, what you lack is direction because you don't know yourself. So how do you know where you need to go? And what the podcast gives you is a lot of information, ideas for you to start exploring and try to figure out, like, how do I want to build this road? So you spend your 20s trialing things, changing direction. And then once you hit your 30s and you feel a little bit more confident, then you start, putting cement down, building out the sidewalk. You already know where you're trying to go. You're just moving in that direction. So I don't need to look towards the internet anymore for guidance in that regards. I feel like I have it and I've received it. Oh, well, listen, we did almost 40 minutes on this topic, so that went by like a breeze.
I did 5 minutes.
Yeah. Hey, listen.
I know he saved your life.
Thank you, Daddy Joe.